Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1843, written by HamburgerTrash. Grief, Music, and Jimmy Buffett. My dad died on New Year's Eve 2018-2019. I decided to set up his old stereo system in my apartment to honor him and help me grieve. He liked hi-fi systems. I just wanted to set up one of his receivers and a 5-disc CD changer that we used to have at our cabin. Important to note, we sold the cabin a few months before his death and emptied all media devices deliberately. We stored CDs, DVDs, and VHS tapes at my mom's house. One CD, Songs You Know by Heart by Jimmy Buffett, was deliberately earmarked as one of the CDs that I was going to eventually bring home for myself. I double-checked to make sure every disc was removed from the disc changer before boxing it up. My wife was standing there with me when I did it and can corroborate this. New Year's Eve morning, I got the call to come down to the nursing home because my dad had died. My wife and I got on the road, and while driving there, I explained my plan to get the stereo system set up in our apartment. My dad also loved country music, Merle, Willie, Alan Jackson, etc., and of course Jimmy Buffett. I very directly and clearly said to my wife, under a wave of emotion and wailing and crying, "You know the first thing I'm gonna play? Jimmy Buffett." And I started crying again. The whole time, I had imagined the song being Cheeseburger in Paradise because it reminds me of him. It's fun and lighthearted, just like he was. After we left the nursing home, my wife and I went to my mom's. And I decided to dive into the large collection of junk in the basement and grab some speakers, the receiver, and the CD changer. As we're driving home, I say to my wife, "Well, I forgot to grab any CDs, so I'm not sure how I'll even test the system out when I get it set up." I didn't have anything to play on the system whatsoever. Not a single CD in my apartment at the time, since they were all still at my mom's. I get home with all the equipment at like 1 a.m. and start putting it together and into place in the living room. I figured that I'll just set it up and get a CD the next day, but I wanted to have the system set up at least. I plug in the CD changer, turn it on, open the tray, see that there are no discs inside, as expected. I closed the changer, and after it went back into its housing, it automatically cycled the discs looking for one to play. I heard a sound in the unit, like a disc plopping into place, and then it registers that there is now a CD in the changer, and the CD started to autoplay. What song plays? Cheeseburger in Paradise. I lost my crap and started bawling uncontrollably. My wife thought I got hurt or something. It turns out that my dad owned 2 copies of Songs You Know by Heart, and one of them was now in the CD changer. The first track on this album is Cheeseburger in Paradise. That was my dad without a doubt, supplying me with the Jimmy Buffett that I needed to test out his stereo equipment. Case file 1843, Grief, Music, and Jimmy Buffett. So first off, I'm sorry for your loss. I know it's been a while, but it is still sad. Regardless of quantum immortality and all that, yeah. Even if you know that your loved one is probably still alive in a different universe, they're not here with you. And that's what really matters. You can't feel yourself in a different universe, only this one. So if you lose someone, it is nice, a silver lining to know they're still around somewhere, but you can't be with them, interact with them, have the same laughs over dinner, and so on and so forth. It's still a part that's missing. Never gets easy. I'm still missing my grandmother. My granddad too, but my grandmother passed away more recently, and it's just, yeah, I mean, she might still be alive in a different universe, but that only helps so much. Now, if this was a duplicate CD, a duplication by the universe, or by your dad leaving you a message, or if he just did have 2, and somehow infiltrated the second one into the system where it didn't make any sense, one way or another, I do believe, yes, It was a fragment of your father's soul just leaving you a message in a very pleasant tone. What better way to do it? Case file number 1844, written by mentaltumult. Unexpected round, confusing scoreboard, and a glitch in time. My daughter, 14, had her first volleyball game today. The first round, the opposing team won. The second round, my daughter's team won and they tied, or so I, 40 female, thought. Halfway through round 3, my other daughter, 12, who accompanied me to her sister's game, asked me what round we are in. I tell her we are in round 3. She looks at the scoreboard and tells me that the board says round 2. What the hell? It does say round 2. The fact she even asked me when she knew what the board meant is baffling to me. Like she experienced something weird too, but she denies it. She says, "It ain't that deep, Mom," which is what she usually says when she avoids talking about something uncomfortable for her. Anyway, I distinctly remember round 2 happening. It was memorable because it meant we were tied. Another thing is the way the scoreboard works. The board operator has to manually turn back the numbers on the control board to reset the score for a new round. So on the board on the wall, you will see the numbers turn back down 25, 24, etc. back to 0. I remember watching that happen. I remember everyone cheering and the girls congregating around their coaches, waiting for the third round for the tiebreaker. But it couldn't have happened. We were in round 2. We did win the second round both times that I experienced it. I either saw the future, experienced a glitch in the matrix, or I'm as crazy as my 14-year-old suggested. Case file 1844. Unexpected round, confusing scoreboard, and a glitch in time. I think this was a subconscious jump ahead. I need a good word for it, but it's where the subconscious is living a few moments into the future, a few minutes I guess, in this case, and relaying that information to your conscious mind. Your subconscious was ahead in time, in this buffered reality. And I think our minds probably do this all the time, without us realizing it. They're just not relaying that information back. I think the relay process has to be triggered by the simulation itself. And how far ahead reality is buffered, I have no idea. There are some stories where it seems like it could be days ahead. What is going to happen in this universe is set in stone, but not because we didn't choose it. We chose it and we're just experiencing the replay, at least most of the time. And so your mind is split in two, and information just drips down, like water through a sieve. It's not supposed to be a sieve most of the time, so when it is, you just get this jumble of confusion, because it is reset back. But only your conscious mind. It was all perception. The other possibility is it was actual clairvoyance, really seeing into the future, a possible future. I prefer the buffer hypothesis, because that invalidates free will less. If we're seeing into the future, probable futures, that is still a way to jive with free will. But if you get really far in the future, it becomes harder for that to fit, because there's just too many variables to be predicting even a day in advance. Case file number 1845, written by Lauber 6, A Quest of Graves, Frustrations, and Historical Mysteries. I'd been trying to add pics of my ancestors' graves to my family tree, but many of the old headstones from those days are so worn that it's nearly impossible to get a pic unless the light is just right. I ended up coming back to the same cemeteries a lot and got very comfortable working in them, carefully cleaning and caring for the many neglected graves. One late afternoon, when the sun was peeking out between the clouds, I could finally see enough of my ancestor's grave to get a decent picture. Also, for the first time ever, I could see some identifying info on the grave to his right. So I made a mental note to get that pic too, so that person wouldn't be lost to history. The clouds were messing with my lighting, so it took a while to get the pic I came for. During this process, I suddenly got irritated, turned to the grave on his right, and barked out loud. I said I'd be right there. Of course they skipped you. Nobody's been able to read your grave for decades. It was a few seconds before I realized what I did, and after checking to see if anyone else could have heard that, I took the pics I wanted and quickly left, and I went straight to the Historical Society and got the rest of that guy's info using the burial log. I started to add him on Find a Grave, but he and generations of his family were already there. However, instead of a picture of his 1866 grave, some lazy potato substituted a very modern half-buried, and therefore nameless, grave from a nearby town. So I added the correct grave pic and a snapshot of the burial log to his site. In my head, I know it was my guilty subconscious, getting irritated with the length of time it took to get the pic, because it was probably this guy's only chance to ever be documented. That being said, I haven't ever gone back to that cemetery, and I don't want to. Caisson sur file 1845, A Quest of Graves, Frustrations, and Historical Mysteries. So I've spent my fair share of time in cemeteries. More as a teenager, I haven't been to a cemetery in many years now. I've never felt like I was momentarily possessed by a spirit that was lingering there or resting there. And in this case, it didn't seem malicious. It was almost like an inside joke. But if that happened to me, no, I would not be going back. Because you just never know who you're going to get possessed by. Do you want to get possessed by some drunkard who was a malicious person? What if a fragment of his personality lingers behind inside you? I don't want to risk that. Again, I don't think it's very likely for this to happen to someone. I think it was simply the right location with the right objective you had in mind to photograph these graves. It was like the opportunity of a lifetime of the afterlife for that spirit. Now time for the joke of the day. I got the words Yakuza and Jacuzzi mixed up. Now I'm in hot water with the Japanese mafia. At least it's cozy until you lose your head. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.